Huzzah and welcome future and current artists to another episode of Drawing with Dr. We're not going to be drawing today because a student asked if we could do a sculpture lesson, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So it's art with Dr. Doodle in the Doodle Den. So today you will need clay. The type that we will be using is a non-drying clay. It only dries when you put it in the oven. The brand that we are using is called Sculpty, but you do not need to use Sculpty. Any non-drying clay will work for you and for our purposes, because we're not just going to be making a sculpture. No. That would be way too easy. We're going to take this sculpture and use it to make something called a stop motion animation. That's right, we're going to make an animation in a future episode using our clay sculpture. Now, if you do not have clay and your parents are unwilling to order you clay or buy you clay, then you can wait to join us in 3 more episodes when we begin our stop motion animation, and you can use any kind of toy that you have to make your own stop motion animation. But we'll talk about what a stop motion animation, or in the case of using clay, a claymation, using clay in animation, what the details of that are. But for today, we're going to be making a sculpture using this clay. I cannot wait to show you what we'll be making. So why don't you join me at the art table right now? Well, I'm excited for today's art with Dr. Doodle. A huge change from our drawing lessons. And as you can see, here are some things that you should lay out before you begin. First, you should have a placemat. Ours is, I'm using light blue construction paper. You should also have the clay that you're going to be working from. This is all the clay that I have right now at my house. So we're going to be using what we have. We're not paying, we're ordering new clay. And then we also have a pencil, which we're going to be using as a clay tool because we actually do not have any clay tools since we moved here. And I have a clay sculpture that Mrs. Doodle actually sculpted for me based on a character of mine. Mrs. Doodle, though, she fired this in our oven, so now it's dry and hard, and we can't move it. And because we can't move it, we can't use it for our claymation in 2 episodes from now. So, what are we going to be making? And what are you going to be making with me? Well, I thought that we would start a little bit easy, but still make sure that this was fun. So we're going to be making an alligator or crocodile, it's up to you, and it's going to be in 3 parts. So, first thing that we need to do is, if we're making a realistic alligator or crocodile, we'll need some green. And since it's going to be 3 parts and I don't want it to be too small, what we're going to do is blend and mix some colors together. So alligators and crocodiles have a mixture of green, some brown, and some yellow in them. So we're going to be taking these, and this is an unopened pack. These are 2 open packs. And we're going to mainly be using our green. So you can open up your pack of clay right now. And we're going to use a little bit of brown. We don't want it to, because when we blend these colors, the colors are going to blend together. So we don't want to have it be too dark. We want there to be a decent amount of green. So we'll take 1 piece of the brown and we'll take 1 piece of our yellow without the white. And we'll put back those and use them if we need it. So this type of clay, over time, doesn't solidify, but it gets a little bit tougher to work with our hands. So the first thing you'll want to do is take each color, use your hands, and try to roll it into a ball in your hands, or you can roll it with your hand on the placemat. What you're trying to do is soften it up as much as you can, and you're going to want to do that with all of the colors that we are using. When you feel that the clay that you are rolling into balls is soft enough, like this brown feels like it is, put it to the side and start your work on the next color. So this one is really tough, this yellow right here. So if that's too tough, you'll want to squeeze it as hard as you can before you can even roll it. Again, roll it in your hands when you can, roll it and push it down a little bit to soften it up on the placemat. So as you can see, the two colors that were previously already opened, become a little bit tougher at first. If you're having difficulty with this, ask somebody else who is maybe stronger than you to roll this out. And as you can see, some of the color will transfer to the placemat. That's why we're using the placemat, and we're making sure that we keep the clay on the placemat as best as you can. So now we've got the yellow and the brown rolled and softened. Now we're going to do that with our green. It's actually pretty tough. So we'll squeeze it, almost like a stress ball. Get out all of that stress, if you have any stress, into this green. And we'll squeeze it as much as we can. We'll push it down on the table. And when we can, we'll start rolling it into a ball. And we'll roll it and roll it. And when you're ready, what we're going to do is we'll first take our brown and we'll take little pieces of it and we'll place it on our green ball, because we're about to blend the colors together. It's kind of looking like a dinosaur egg, if I do say so myself. Take your time, roll it around when you can. And you're gonna roll it in your hands. You'll roll it on the table if you need to. The character of mine over here, some of you might have seen him in the classroom. His name is Jake, and he's wearing penguin pajamas. And because the character is supposed to, in my story called Penguin Mansion, because it takes place in his dream, in Jake's dream, his penguin pajamas are alive and they're his dream guide, and they're called Lucas. Now I'm rolling our dinosaur egg, and now what you're going to need to do is rip it apart and roll them separately. And then start ripping them apart and twisting them and ripping them to get the colors to be perfectly blend, or as perfectly blended as possible. When you're working with clay, just like we are right now, it's important that you take the time. With any artwork, really, it's important to take your time to set it up like we're doing right now, to make sure that your work looks as nice as it can be. If you have extra green pieces of clay, you can make a larger sculpture than we are going to be making. It's up to you. Well, also it's up to your parents as well. If the clay isn't exactly yours, or your siblings or anybody else, if it's not your own clay, make sure that it's okay with whose ever clay it is that you're using just the right amount and not too much. So as you can see, the colors are blending together. We've got a greenish brown And as you're doing this, ripping it, twisting it, you should feel the clay start to soften. And this is important for us to be able to do our sculpture. We'll do that to get this piece looking like that piece right over there. Take your time. And we're going to do the same thing when we begin adding the yellow to our clay. So let's rip this up into two pieces and rip this into many different pieces that we are going to add to these balls of clay. Now I'm very excited to show you, not during this lesson and not next lesson, but in 2 more episodes from now, how to transform our clay sculpture into an animation. That's right, we're going to be making an animation from our clay sculpture, and if you aren't able to work on a clay sculpture, then you'll be able to follow along with us in 2 more episodes, and you can animate any type of toy that you have. So we'll add the yellow and we'll start twisting and just squishing it together. If you have siblings, or if your parents are available and free to help you out, you can ask them to help you to mix the colors together. And as you can see, we're having when we mix it together, it's forming a very beautiful blend or mix of yellow and brown and green. And this will make our crocodile or alligator look that much more realistic, because it won't be just one solid color. So we've got a really nice blended or mixed color happening in this ball, and it's very soft and easy to sculpt now. So I'm going to move on to this ball, and then we'll be able to break these 2 balls down into 3 balls of clay. And so you might be wondering why we need 3 balls of clay. Well, jumping ahead a little bit, we are going to be making 3 parts for our alligator or crocodile. We will be making the head, the body, and the tail. And the way that we're going to be sculpting this, it's going to look, when it's all done, like your sculpture is swimming on top of whatever surface you have it laid out on. So if you lay it out on a table, it's going to look like it is swimming on top of the table, and part of it will look like it's underneath the table, like the table is water. That's part of why I chose blue, this light blue, for our placemat, because it's going to look like water. And we'll use another light blue construction paper that doesn't have all of the grease from the or oil from the clay on it for our animation when we work on that next. Well, in 2 more episodes. So we're blending the colors together, and you can stop blending once you feel comfortable or like the color combination, color mixture that you have with your pieces of clay. And I believe that right now I am happy with how these look. So we're going to need a piece for the head, the body, and the tail. So let's roll these back up into balls, and that's what you should do right now. Roll up your 3 pieces of clay into balls. The head and the body should be around the same size. The head could be a little bit smaller than the body, and the tail will be a lot smaller than both of them. So I'll wait for you. Again, you should have 3 balls of different size of clay. They'll all look unique, and they kind of look like colorful marbles a little bit. And they're very beautiful just by themselves. But we're going to be using our hands, fingers, and a pencil to help us add details. And if you have any plastic utensils that your parents will let you use, or if you have clay tools of your own, you can use them and follow along. So we're going to start by adding some details in our clay. And what I would suggest we do is start with the smallest part first. So let's move our head and body to the side or to the top of our placemat, and then take the smaller piece of clay that's going to be our tail, and we're going to be using our hands to roll this ball from side to side to make a hot dog or a snake. And now that we have this shape right here, we're going to curve the tail, and you could curve it whichever direction you want it to go. We're not going to dry it out, so you'll be able to actually move the tail when we animate it in 2 more episodes. So now that we have the basic structure of the tail, we're going to add the details later on and not just yet. But what I would suggest you do is on the side that is supposed to be connected to the body, let's use our fingers and very gently, not a lot, push down on the edge so it looks like the tail is coming up from the water. Not enough that it gets stuck to the placemat, but just enough that it doesn't look like it's just hanging out there, that it looks like it's going underneath the water. So we've got the curve of the tail, almost like a letter U or a lowercase letter N. We could even make it look like a letter S. It's up to you how you want to curve the tail. And it looks now like it's going under the water and coming up. We'll work on the details later, like I said, so let's put it to the top of our placemat. Take our body ball of clay, or the ball of clay that's going to become our body, and let's roll it side to side just a little bit, not so much that it becomes a tail, but enough that it gets a little bit longer. And now what I want us to do is the same thing that we did with this side of the tail, but on both sides, the left and the right side. Push down just a little bit on both sides. And that way it looks like the body is going under the water over here, under the water here. And now we've got the top part of the body and the tail coming out of the water. Part of the body and the tail are under the water. The neck is under the water, and we're about to make the head. If you want your alligator or crocodile body to be a little bit longer, all you have to do is roll it a little bit more, and then make sure that you flatten out the edges again just a little bit. And now you can have a longer body. Okay. Now that those are out of the way, we will be adding details to both of these in a little bit. But we're going to need to work on our head. So, to make the head, what we're going to do, or better yet, let me ask you, what do you think we're going to be doing? If you said that we're going to roll the head side to side like we did for the body and the tail, you are correct. We're going to roll it just a little bit, maybe 3 or 4 times. And now what we're going to do is we're going to, yeah, you guessed that right, we're going to use our fingers and make sure that only the back part near the neck is a little bit flatter, and it looks like it is going underneath the water. Now, the head looks a little bit too large compared to the body, but that is okay because we can do something about that, and we will do that shortly. But for now, let's take a break. Well, I think that now is a perfect time for a break. As we've done during our regular drawing lessons, it's very important as an artist to take a step back from your artwork and just take a break. Because when you take a break, you give yourself some time to think about what it is that you've been working on. And when you step back to your work, you might have some new ideas, or you might be able to view it in a new lens or angle, or step away if you get upset or angry or frustrated. And that way you don't destroy or ruin the work in progress, because artwork in progress is usually never great. And even when you finish your artwork, it's never fully exactly what you envisioned in your head. So today's break, we're going to do something a little bit different. It's not going to be our usual rebus puzzle for today. Instead, what I want us to do is something that I think that all of us could use, and that is just a meditation break. I want us to, or some of your family members might call it a mindfulness break. It's very important that we take a break from life itself and reflect on what's been going on and empty our heads of any kind of thoughts that we have, just so that way we can have a moment of peace and quiet. So if you have the ability to step outside and you can sit somewhere quiet, outside or inside, wherever you can sit that's a peaceful, quiet place, let's do this together. Take a seat, sit comfortably, close your eyes, place your hands in a place that is relaxing and comfortable. And now what I want you to do is to breathe in slowly through your nose, breathe out with your mouth, breathe in slowly with your nose once more, breathe out. And now what I want you to do is just to start emptying out any thoughts that you have in your head. Any thoughts about the sculpture, what you like or don't like about it, just they're floating out. You're at peace, you're safe, you're in a comfortable, quiet spot. And now, as you start to just divest and have your thoughts just leave your head, I want you to think about what you envision your alligator or crocodile is going to look like when it's fully done. I want you to think about where your alligator or crocodile lives. And I want you to envision that you're sitting, you yourself are sitting at either the river's edge or the water's edge, wherever your alligator or crocodile, wherever you think it's living. I want you to be a good distance away, a safe distance away, but you are sitting there, maybe laying on your back, and you're looking up at the sky, and you can see out of the corner of your eye your alligator or crocodile, wherever it is, just moving very slowly or just staying put and just relaxing in the sun. I want you to imagine what the clouds might look like as you're looking at them. And I want you to breathe very slowly in through your nose, out through your mouth. And I want you to imagine that you are starting to float up towards those clouds, up in that sky. And you're safe, and you're in control, and you're floating towards the clouds, Maybe you're floating towards a cloud that looks like a bunch of cotton candy. Maybe it looks like ice cream in a cone. And I want you to be peaceful and you're just floating there. And now what I want you to do is imagine yourself floating back to the ground. Breathe in through your nose slowly, out of your mouth slowly, and you're floating down. You're floating down back to wherever you are actually, either in your house or outside. And now we're back where we are, and I want you to slowly breathe one more time, in through your nose, out through your mouth. I want you to slowly open your eyes, and I want you to look at the screen and look at me in the doodle den. And I want you to now look back down at your artwork if you've been following along and working with me. And now, if you're ready to continue, we're going to continue working on our sculpture. Thank you for taking that break. I know it wasn't, for some of you, it might not be as fun as a regular puzzle break, but I feel like taking these breaks when you feel stressed or anxious or scared, fearful, or even angry is a really big help. So let's go back to the doodle den and begin once more on our clay sculpture. And welcome back, future and current artists. Now that you're done taking your meditation break, I think you're ready to work on some of the details of our alligator or crocodile, whichever one that you want to make. We'll save the head for last because that's the most detailed. And the body is just a continuation of what we're going to do on the tail. So let's start with the tail. So what I want us to do is make individual scales, that's right, scales, on our alligator or crocodile. Now, we're going to make our scales first by using a pencil or a clay tool or a plastic knife, if you get your parents' permission, and we're going to make some lines going across. That's how we're first going to start with making our scales. And we're going to do that not so deep that you cut fully into the tail, but just enough that we can see them. And we're going to go from one end to the other, and we can take off any scraps of clay that come off as we do this. You should be holding down the clay to make sure it doesn't wobble too much. And already we're getting some really nice texture just from doing this. If you're able to hear the noise of other people outside, that's because Dr. Doodle's Doodle Den is right across from a park, and there are some people playing handball right now. So I just finished making my lines across. You can take a look. Looks kind of like a snake on its own. And now we're going to add a little bit more detail. So from here on out, we're going to make lines going from this part of the tail to the tip of the tail. And you're going to take your time because you want to make sure that it looks as nice as it can be. And that's why it's hard for me to talk while I do this, because I'm trying to focus as much as I can on the work that I'm doing. If you don't like what you have made, you can always rub it away and start again. That's the beauty of using clay. So now that we have these separate lines, we're going to do something very fun and unique. We're going to make some little spiky scales running from this side all the way down and that side all the way down. To do that, you'll be pinching You'll use your fingers and you'll make a little pinch one way and the other way until you get the spike. You don't want it to be too long or it will fall off. And you'll do this all the way down on this side, all the way down on the other side. And it's now starting to come together. If you're having trouble with this, you can always, once you're done, if you don't like what you're making, you can always fix those lines with your pencil again, or whatever you're using as your clay tool. So we have the spikes on one side. We're going to do it on the other side of the tail now too. Well, it sounds like my friends at the park are enjoying their time outside. Let's continue to focus on our spiky tail. So as I was making the spiky tail, I'm sure you saw and noticed that my tail is now not curved. So if that's the case for your tail, but that's okay. That's why we're not letting the clay dry, and now we can change it back to that letter S. It looks kind of like a snake again, and we can move that back to the top of our placemat. And now that we've finished the spikes for the tail, we can work on the rest of our body. And what we're going to do is very similar to what we did with the tail. We'll be making lines from the bottom to the top and from the left to the right. But here's the difference. We're going to add spikes on every part of the body. So let's get started. This is going to take some time. So we'll first start by making, you know what? After working on the spikes here, I think it would be better for us, and that's what's beautiful about art, is that just like when you're playing sports, when you're working on artwork, it is not a final finished piece. There's always more that you can do and more that you can learn. This is practice. So this was practice for me. I hadn't sculpted an alligator in a long time, and I realized that, you know what? Even though the steps I took to make the scales worked out, it would work even better if we held off on our lines and did the spikes first. So let's do that. Let's pinch and pull a little bit and start making our spikes. So pinch and pinch, pinch and pinch, pinch and pinch in either direction, and both directions, that is. And you're going to do this all along the body. It's going to look like the back of a dinosaur almost. And you're going to keep on doing that. Now this is going to take us a little bit more time than we have today, future and current artists. So with that, I will see you again next episode. I hope today's lesson wasn't too hard for you and that you enjoyed yourself. Although we didn't finish our alligator sculpture together, we will work on it some more next episode, and hopefully we'll finish it then. If you'd like to jump ahead, the next episode should be available at the same time as this first part. And if you can wait until next week, we will be taking our sculpture and creating an animation from it. Can't wait to see you then. Wow, Dr. D. Right, future and current artists? Dr. Doodle made an amazing clay sculpture. If you enjoyed what you saw today and would like to see more videos just as fun, click subscribe, hit the bell. This is amazing. Dr. D, you do an amazing job.